I love a fresh start. I always have. When I was a kid, I kept my room pretty messy most of the time, but every now and again, I would be overcome by the need to completely reorganize and rearrange everything. I would drag my furniture back and forth across the carpet until I had a new configuration that I was happy with. Then I would sit on the bed and admire my work. But the deeper satisfaction came in the morning when I opened my eyes and found myself in a brand new room. I always really like that feeling of a new beginning. I still do, but sometimes it takes more than just rearranging the furniture, right? Sometimes we want to rearrange our whole outlook or the way we show up in the world. That's what I want to talk about today. But first, I want to ask you to put your hand on your heart and think of one thing that you would never, ever do, but that you always wished you could. Okay, one thing that you would never do, but that you always wished you could. For me, it would be to jump off a cliff into water. I have seen people do it. The thought terrifies me, but I always wished I could do that. For you, maybe it's to dance burlesque, or to confess your love to someone, or maybe swim with sharks. If you need a second, go ahead and pause the recording and think of something that you would never do, but that you always wished you could. And once you have it, leave your hand on your heart and imagine that someone comes to your door and they say to you, it's now or never. They're offering you the opportunity to do that one thing, and you can go through the door and do it, or you can slam the door and you'll never have the chance to do it again. Really picture that. How is your heart feeling? Is it beating a little bit harder? If it is, write that thing down on a sticky note. If it's not, maybe pause the recording and find something that does make your heart beat a little bit harder, because that feeling, that thrill and that terror at the thought of doing the scary thing, that can be the thing that changes your whole outlook and that rearranges the way that you show up in the world. Because it's a risk, and risks, they give us new opportunities. They give us confidence. Risks spur creativity, and they make us fully present in the moment. But the type of risks we choose matters too. While just about any risk is going to give us a thrill in the moment, there are other risks that can reward you and you'll get the benefits for years to come, maybe even your whole life. In my experience, the deepest and scariest risks, the most rewarding, are those that involve authenticity, as showing up as who we really are. Now, that's not always clear. What does that really mean? But I believe that if you look back at the risks that you took as a child, they can help point you in the right direction and kind of guide you to the types of risks that might suit you today. I was 8 years old when I took my first really big risk. I told an adult that my dad had been molesting me for several years. I don't remember the exact moment that I told, but I do remember later sitting at the police station with a police officer and a social worker and telling them my story. I remember feeling the seriousness of the situation. And I remember feeling important. This was the first time that any adult had looked me in the eye, asked me my experience, asked me what I knew, and then leaned in closer to hear what I had to say. It was a new feeling. It was like I mattered. And that feeling was like maybe the emotional equivalent of waking up in a room with the furniture rearranged. So you know what I did? I went and I told everyone. I believed the police officer and the social worker when they said I had done a good thing, when they said that speaking up was a good thing. So I went and I told everyone I came into contact with, I said, my dad molested me, but I told, and he might go to jail. I was high. Basically, I was high, partly from knowing that it was over, that the secret was out, but also partly from having this new understanding that I might actually matter enough to take seriously. Unfortunately, a terribly mean girl from my neighborhood went around the school saying Beth fucked her dad. It was devastating. My brother got in a fight at school about it, and my mom seemed mad at me all the time. It was like waking up from a beautiful dream and finding yourself cold, alone, and in the dark. The pain of it went really deep. I got the message that I don't get to exist in that realm, in that place of pure openness and joy, and that I should actually feel ashamed of myself for thinking I could. But for that one moment, I got to feel this exquisite freedom and permission to be exactly as I am, shameless and vibrant. And as hard as life continued to be after that, without that glimpse, I might never have known that it was even possible to feel that way. I wanted to tell you that story today for two reasons. First, because it's an example of a time I took a risk in childhood and it paid off. The rewards, some of them took a while to reveal themselves, but in the short and long term, it was life-changing. The second reason is that telling you today is exactly the kind of risk that suits me and who I am. I think there's a third reason too, and that's that I'm really proud to say that at 8 years old, I was a person who could just straight up tell a scary truth. A few years ago, a friend of mine sent me a link to a video, and it was a video about an artist named Ran Ortner. He is a surfer and a painter, and in the video he describes this profound spiritual devotion he has to water. But he said that there was a time when he thought the idea of painting water was ridiculous because it had been done before. But as he explains in the video, he says something about it that really resonates with me. He said, art is not a cleverness contest. It's not one's capacity to be inventive. It's really an honesty contest, the capacity to truly be that thing that you are. I believe that for most of us, being the thing that we truly are is the biggest and scariest risk there is. But I also believe that if we follow our beating hearts through those smaller risks of taking a burlesque class or confessing our love to someone, we get closer and closer to who we really are. I had a recent experience that helped me understand that in order to become a person who takes risks, you have to take risks. So I've been working from home for 10 years. And my work as a journalist takes me out into the world to have experiences, and I come home and I write about them. But I sort of transitioned into content marketing and copywriting and other types of work that came to me in my inbox, and the conversations I had about the work took place by email. It was all very convenient, but I was feeling really lonely and isolated and depressed. I was drinking a lot. I had a lot to feel grateful for, but emotionally I was really struggling. So I decided I needed two things. One, to quit drinking, which I did. And two, I decided that I needed to get out of the house. So I signed up for a membership at a collaborative co-working space called You Belong Here. It's run by these two very cool women named Nick Rock and Stacy Keck, and I just wanted to be around them. So I would go a couple days a week and kind of hunker down over my computer, watch the artists and creatives kind of coming and going, and I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't want to just be among them. I wanted to engage. So when Stacy, who's a photographer, said that she was offering creative headshots, I signed up. I didn't have a need for headshots. I didn't even really know what that meant, creative headshots, but I signed up anyway. And I thought, I want to show up for these pictures in the most authentic way that I can. But what does that mean? So I went home and I journaled about it a little bit. And I concluded that in my art, I aspire to tell an intimate and honest truth in a powerful way. I really aspire to lay myself bare. So I thought, aha, I'll get naked. Yes, naked headshots. I showed up to the photo shoot with a pair of combat boots and a bunny mask, and I thought, yeah, that's edgy. It shows my toughness and my vulnerability, and I'm gonna be so badass. Well, the shoot was awkward. I felt awkward. I'm no model, but I did it anyway, and doing it was kind of exhilarating. I thought maybe the awkwardness that I felt was not going to show up in the pictures. The pictures would paint a different picture, and I would be more like the me version of Lizzo, all beautiful and badass. Well, when I saw the pictures, I was mortified. All I could see in them was my aging body and my old tan lines and weird patches of skin discoloration. I did not look cool or edgy. I looked corny. To anyone else, maybe it would have been just an embarrassment or a disappointment. But those pictures sent me spiraling out of control with self-loathing. I was disgusted with myself. I was in so much turmoil about it. It was the deep pit of feelings I was having about it were way out of proportion to the event itself. The only thing I could think to do to get out of it was to make art. So I took the picture I hated the least and I photocopied it 100 times. And I decided to make a collage. So I started cutting around the shape of my body over and over and over again. And as I did, it occurred to me that the shame and humiliation I felt was not about the way my body looked, because my body looked fine. It was about who I was. I was ashamed of myself for being unashamed. I was ashamed of myself for being so out there. And as I cut and made this collage, I realized that shame went all the way back to when I was 8 years old. And I was high from having released this secret that I had been sexually abused. And here I was, high and feeling exuberant and nude, but the same voice that I had internalized way back then came in and said, you don't get to exist in that realm, and you should be ashamed of yourself for even thinking that you could. As I was creating this collage, I could hear that voice clearly. But then something else happened. A question popped up into my mind. And it's a question I'm going to pose to you in just a minute. But first, I want to tell you something quickly about my husband. So we've been married for 12 years. And in that time, he's seen me on a few occasions go down deep into this pit of self-loathing. And when he hears me make a disparaging comment about myself or questioning my worth, he'll say, you know, I just wish you could see yourself the way I see you. He said it so many times that it's gotten into my head. And I've started to hear every now and again when I get down deep in that pit, I hear, what if? What if he's right? What if I am beautiful? What if I am smart? What if I am a good mom? So as I was working on this collage, I heard, what if I am a badass? And as I was cutting out this shape of my body over and over again in kind of this meditative act of creating, I kept hearing, what if I am a badass? What if I am a badass? And that question played so many times that I began to see the whole experience in a new light. When I showed up at that photo shoot and I took off all my clothes, I may not have had the best concept. I may not have had the best execution, but I showed up as the truest version of myself, a little wild, a little bold, and a little shameless in a good way. In my art, my creative impulse is from a place of daring. I aspire to reach down and present the realest and truest truth, just like I did when I was a kid. Was I uncomfortable? Yes, I was. Would I do it again? Yes, I would. In fact, I did. A couple of weeks ago, I had an idea for a piece of art, and so I contacted a brilliant photographer named Sydney Prather, and I scheduled another nude photo shoot. The night before, I very seriously considered canceling, and in the morning, I actually prayed that there would be a cancellation text from Sydney, but there wasn't. So I went and I did the shoot. Like a badass. Am I a nutcase? Yes, I am. But that doesn't mean you have to be. Your risks might be quieter. They might be more fully clothed. But as long as they make your heart beat a little bit, and as long as they bear some real connection to who you are, then no matter how they turn out, those risks are going to reboot something essential in yourself. So take a look at your sticky note. You may not be ready to take that risk quite yet, but don't get rid of that piece of paper. Put it up someplace where you can see it every once in a while. And when you pass by it, ask yourself, what if? What if I am brave enough? What if I can save enough money? What if I am smart enough? The simple possibility contained in that question might just be the thing that changes everything about the way you see yourself, the way you show up in the world. In the meantime, there are a million little risks you can take in a day, a week, or a month. And if you're not ready for that and all you want is a simple change of perspective, then I highly recommend rearranging your bedroom furniture.